He's the Brian Dutcher Report.
People that are interested in Mountain West basketball and San Diego State will get a chance to see us firsthand.
Driven by Sunroad's Kearney Mesa Subaru. It just makes sense. Minutes from anywhere in San Diego.
All right. How about this music for the Brian Dutcher Report? I like it. What do you think, Marty? Did you pick the music?
I did not pick the music.
You did not?
I would probably go with, Dancing Queen or something.
Dancing Queen?
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. For a weekly segment where we talk some San Diego State basketball, I don't know. I don't know if the head coach would approve of that. He's probably got more important things to do than to listen to this conversation. So let's say hello to Brian Dutcher. He's the head coach at San Diego State. San Diego State will travel. They will play Air Force. That's at least what's scheduled coming up a little later on this week. Aztecs return from Logan, Utah. They are 9-4. They are 3-3 in conference play. Swept in a couple of games. Obviously, the story about Matt Mitchell and his injury was one that we talked a little bit about on Friday. Was really glad over the weekend to hear that they received some relatively good news in that regard. Dutch, thank you very much. It's Darren. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Darren.
Do you approve of your music that we played there for you to welcome you on the air after each and every week here?
I wasn't on hold long enough to really hear what it was.
Okay. Well, we'll work on that for next week, because next week we've got nothing better to do than to keep the head coach on hold for as long as possible. So we won't bother with that, Dutch. You know me, I always like starting with I'm an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist here, so I want to start with the good news after last week. What was the good news after last week?
Good news was Matt Mitchell is going to be back, and we all saw the injury. I learned a long time ago. I've seen guys go down, and sometimes I think it's minor and it turns out major. Sometimes I think it's major and it turns out minor. And so to see it happen on film, you worry, but I was optimistic. We got an MRI, hyperextension, bone bruise, should be back in 2 weeks. So that was really good news for us.
All right. Well, I like that as well. And in real time, Dutch, did you see that? You mentioned a little bit that you saw it on film. And anybody who's watching the game, it's not just that they show it. It's not that you notice it. It's then that it gets slowed down. And oftentimes, it really leaves you worrying about any athlete when we sort of see that sort of, how much did you have a sense of what had actually happened Thursday night while watching it live?
I was kind of screened on it. He was below my vantage point, and I saw him go down. I saw him reach for the knee, so I didn't really get to see it until after the game when I watched the game tape. And then you could legitimately see it look like it buckled pretty significantly. He was extended with that foot and planted strange. And so you never know what to think. We're just really fortunate that it wasn't more severe, that we will get Matt back at some point, hopefully within 2 weeks, and that will make us better, obviously.
Well, this is a big deal, and the reason why I'm just going to ask one quick follow-up on it, Brian Dutcher joining us here on Xtra 1360, is, we all understand what Matt Mitchell means to your team, and nobody understands that more than probably the team itself. So when you have to make a decision, you got to find a player who's going to replace him. You probably suspect that you're going to be without him for at least the remainder of that game on Thursday night. But in terms of coaching, how much of what you're doing there is just the X's and O's and just getting another player in there and figuring out new rotations and asking different things of different players? How much of it also is making sure, that the team emotionally, like they're in the right place here, that they still have another half of basketball and a whole nother game to play in Logan, Utah?
Yeah, obviously, you want them feeling good about themselves, their chances to win without Matt in the lineup. And I think we did that for the most part. We made adjustments after game one. We weren't aggressive enough in game one at the offensive end, and we got downhill more. We drove to the basket. We attacked inside out a lot more in the second game, and we're fairly effective. But with that being said, we came up short, and that's always disappointing. No moral victories. Coaches, that's cliche. We all say that, but it's true. We have to find a way to win one of those games minimally.
And the starting lineup in Saturday's game, the difference was Mitchell obviously couldn't play. A rope is in there. Is that the way you see it moving forward, Dutch? Forward for forward here, and you'll see where that can get you?
You know what, Darren? I haven't decided. I text the coaches this weekend. I wanted to know their thoughts on a starting lineup. I didn't want to have it as a group meeting. I wanted them to express their opinions. And I got 3 or 4 different opinions, just like you would expect in coaching. Everyone has different thoughts as to what would be most effective. So I listened to all of them. I read all through the text, and I've kind of made a decision. So I'm not at liberty right now to tell you what that is, but we will put a different lineup out there against Air Force.
Okay. A different lineup, just to be clear here, a different lineup from Saturday or a different lineup from where you began last week?
Well, obviously from where we began last week with Matt Mitchell. But, Air Force is such a different beast. They zone so much, all matchup zone. So, I want to make sure we have enough shooters out there.
All right. I think we know where you're going with that, Dutch, and we'll leave that one alone. Joining us here on Xtra 1360. And, as you said, the relief is that Matt Mitchell will be back. So what happens with Matt now for the next couple of weeks? Does he travel with the club or does he stay? Does he rehab? What's the next couple of weeks look like for Matt?
Yeah, Matt will be with us, and I thought he did a great job on Saturday helping coach the team, motivating guys, talking to them when they came off the court. So he didn't sit there and pout because he was hurt and just kind of disengaged. He was fully engaged, trying to help his team to a victory from the bench. And that's a hard thing to do, but I thought he did a great job of that.
So, Dutch, in addition to having to come up with a starting five, right, which is the most obvious thing that people like me usually ask you about, what does this mean? This isn't a simple plug-and-play type situation here. You have to work on new rotations, new combinations, perhaps new plays. How much more goes into having now all these decisions right in front of you? I mean, this sounds like it alters things quite a bit for San Diego State basketball.
Yeah, we have to adjust. We have to, Matt had gone 20-20-20 in the 3 games prior to the Utah State series, and so was scoring a lot of points and was very dangerous. And so now we have to find a way to continue to manufacture points and still play the elite defense we've been playing all year. So this team has played great defense. Even in the loss, the first loss to Utah State, the glaring weakness is 40-some points. We forced them into 18 turnovers, and the rebounding difference was only 2, and they've been out-rebounding people by 15, 16 a game. And so we played well in defeat, but it's still defeat. So we have to find a way to manufacture more baskets, and with that being said, continue to play our elite defense.
Absolutely. Again, and as you said, no moral victories here, but silver linings, right? I think we can agree that there's some silver linings sometimes. Lamont Butler would potentially be one of those. Watching a freshman go out, contribute, and play some important minutes for you down the stretch. Your thoughts on what we saw from your freshman?
I mean, just really spectacular attacking to the basket. That was a point of emphasis on the day between games. Lamont obviously was the best at it in that game. He attacked Keita, he attacked Bean, got to the rim, finished with N1s. I mean, he missed one free throw. He had 2 opportunities to get 3-point plays on the drive. We haven't had that a lot this year. So Lamont's contributions were important and will continue to be important as we move forward.
Dutch, I think we can look at the standings here and we can see where Utah State is and we can see where Boise State is, right? I mean, you guys find yourself at 3-3 in conference play, which is 5th, 9-4 overall. And we can look towards the top of the standings in the Mountain West. And then we can look at the bottom of the standings, and that's what the schedule looks like. The schedule has, at least on paper, it looks like it sets up pretty well for you guys. Now, how do you coach against that level of complacency as well, that you just got through Utah State? You know who's doing really well in this conference and who's not doing really well. It's been written here that you guys have to go on a run against, quote, inferior competition. How do you guard against that, knowing, who you're playing and when you're playing here over the next couple of weeks?
Well, I told him when we got off the bus Saturday night that we have a level of performance that we have to play to, and the opposition shouldn't matter, that we have expectations and that we're not so talented that we can overlook anybody. We're not going to roll out there and just out-talent people. So we have to perform. We have to perform at a high level, and we've all seen it. We've all seen the slips over the years, and no matter what sport it is, where you go on the road and you think you're supposed to win, but that other team thinks they're supposed to win. And so we're not going to feel so full of ourselves playing teams with losing records that we think we're just going to roll out the balls and win a game.
Right. Yeah. Tell them to stop listening to people on radio and people who write things. And they're like, well, the good news is that, you get inferior competition over the next couple of weeks, right? Block out the noise. Yeah.
Well, I always tell them no matter what the standings are, San Diego State always gets everybody's best shot. So whatever team we see on tape, whatever deficiencies we think they may or may not have, they play at a higher level against us because we've won a number of titles and we've had great success. So we always see everyone's best effort, and that's part of preparing.
Quick thought on anything you learned about traveling last week, since we talked about it last session, and then this week having to do it again. Anything that caught you by surprise here, just in terms of like the pure logistics of having to travel and get on airplanes and do all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, the airports were pretty wide open. It wasn't bad at all. We had seats in between us on the flights. I definitely like the old model where you're home and road. You don't stay on the road for 3 or 4 days. I think that gets to be a bit taxing to sit around a hotel that much. And this will be even worse. We go in Thursday. The Friday night game is at 9 o'clock at night, their time, and then Sunday night, 8 o'clock at night. So you're talking about long days waiting to play. And then obviously we can't get out after Sunday's game. It's going to be a bus trip back to Denver overnight and back on Monday. So it's hard. It's not easy. People think, well, they're college kids. Yeah, but you sit around in a hotel, you know how that is, just waiting to play. That's a long day.
It is a long day. Absolutely. So you guys will fly in on Thursday. You'll fly to Denver, then you'll bus to Air Force, then back to Denver's Colorado Springs, and then, oh my God, and then back on Monday.
Then back on Monday because the game on Sunday night is 8 o'clock start. I think that's the latest game they're playing that day. So why Air Force San Diego State is an 8 o'clock Sunday game, I have no idea. I was hoping it would have been an afternoon game where we could have got out and we wouldn't have had to wait another full day to play. But you talk about waiting a Friday till 9 at night in Colorado Springs. It's not like you're at your apartment. You can get out. You're in the hotel. We don't let them out. We can't be running around the city. We're sitting in the hotel until a 9 o'clock game and an 8 o'clock game, and that's a tough thing to do, but that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I mean that's like 5 days. That's a vacation. I mean that's a check bag from where I sit.
Yeah, that's a long stay. 5 days is a long stay to play 2 basketball games.
Well, you got to do what you got to do, and that's Friday night at Air Force. Dutch, we appreciate it. Thank you very much. Always enjoy the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Darren.